Anyway, it is 6:31. So we will call this session of the Jericho Select Board at its start. And as usual, we always start with public to be heard, and this is for anything that is not on the agenda. And so I imagine, I see you're here, and I see some other people up there that are also not on the agenda. So who gets to go first?
Joel, you've got something?
Yeah, and I'll be quick too. This is in regards to an email that was floating around a couple of days ago with regards to the state's clean water initiative and the Sea Grant program.
Yeah.
That's something where, John, I don't know if you recall, a couple of years ago, you asked me to keep an eye on the RPC / Clean Water Initiative. And I mean, it's in my wheelhouse anyway, excuse me, as an ecologist. And I've had Juliana White, the director of the program. She also ran the Blue program. She came by my house a couple of years ago and I met her personally. And one of her charges, Jill Sarazin, is going to be presenting on rain gardens in town. And there is an opportunity coming up for a funding. And basically the state's clean water initiative is kind of a rotating fund. So they're always funding opportunities. And we've missed a few, mainly because I haven't brought them to light, or I just didn't know where these things would reside going forward. And I don't know that we have that yet, but I have some ideas. And bottom line here is on February 17th is a letter of intent due date where we could apply for, I think it's $100,000 to $200,000 towards projects involving clean water and basin oriented clean water type of ecological development. Basically, it's we come with the argument and they decide whether or not it reaches merit. And my point in this is we may not know exactly where this would fit. We have a little bit of time to try and kind of flesh that out. I'd be fine doing it all entirely myself on behalf of the town, whether it's through CDC or through even the JP or the community center, whichever. But the bottom line here is that there is an opportunity, and the more we engage with the Sea Grant program and the basin resources, the more we're on their radar for future opportunities, even if this one falls on our face. So it creates an inertia that, yes, as a community, we want to be involved and access these resources, not just financial, but the actual expertise resources. And truthfully, Jericho is kind of a jewel in terms of the county and region with regards to the Lake Champlain Basin, in that we're providing some of the best water into that lake through Mill, Lee, and Brown Rivers right off the mountains, which is ironic because we're pulling our drinking water right back from the lake. We should probably just build our own cistern and have better water, but that's a different argument. So anyways, I'd like you guys to think about giving you the green light to at least provide a letter of intent, and then where it ends up residing or who's involved in it, I think is a matter of conjecture. Kathy, if you'd like to have it in the energy task force, let's change the E from energy to energy to ecology. And that'll
add that to your list.
Yeah.
Joe, I couldn't tell.
I'll drive
Joe,
it.
I couldn't tell from the email what those funds might be used towards. Is it for specifically for stormwater or for things other than stormwater?
That's the neat concept behind what they're doing here is they're leaving it to us to try and create innovative solutions that fall within their very broad range of how does it improve the ecosystem, how does it improve the communities, how does it improve the basin. So in this instance, it could be used for, it could be used for sewage, it could be used for stormwater, it could be used for nature type of orientations that focus upon water ecology, or just ecology in general, or agricultural ecology. It could go in a lot of different directions, and they leave it to us to be creative.
Do you suspect it's more for studies than actual shovel in the ground?
No, I do not, because they made it available to municipalities for projects. And I think if we come with a package of, we would like to do these things, however far that takes us, I think they would be amenable. And the other aspect as well is I already have a line of communication. And they've made it clear that we can investigate further. So if you say, sounds good, get back to us at the next select board meeting, and then I'll instantly work on getting on Juliana's calendar and have a good, thoughtful conversation with her as to what the best direction would be.
Joel, one thing that I would suggest, if this is the same grant, so the Clean Water Initiative, is that the grant that's due on March 13th?
I would have to see. I know there are a lot of grants.
I've
being
seen,
floated
I
around.
saw I saw the C grant, and I just want you to know that Linda Blosh, our new town planner, she has been looking into a clean water initiative grant funding source to relook at the stormwater catchment and dispersal design for Bulger Hill. And so I would suggest that you and Linda have a conversation, or the three of us have a conversation, and try to get some clarity about which grants we're talking about and which projects they can be applied to.
Well, I mean, I'm available for these conversations, but I'm also not a hard push.
Yeah.
If they'd like to involve me, I can
For
tell you
sure.
that the last time anyone claimed to want to do anything with Bulger Hill, they basically took all of my information and went and had meetings upon meetings and dropped my name, and I didn't find out for a year that I was part and parcel of a plan that I wasn't even aware of. So, I've got ideas. I've figured it out. I live here. You do what's you.
It sounds like it would make sense, though, to be checking with Linda
It does.
and I mean, I support this direction because
Oh
it
yeah.
sounds really good, but
Yeah.
And it may be different grant programs because they do have different initiatives.
I could
Grants,
tell-
they
yeah,
would do
I
it
just-
different times
Without
too.
taking time to go through email, I've looked at two in the last week. One was the C grant and one was the Clean Water Initiative, and I think they're different.
Let me just put it this way. You're gonna have to nudge Linda. I've reached out to her and I've received not a bad response, but more of a, hey, it's great to have informed citizens. And I'm like, I'm actually a little more than that, but whatever. So you tell her to reach out to me. Otherwise, I'm just gonna leave it be and follow whatever you guys want.
Will do.
sounds good. Thank you
Sounds
for
good.
doing this.
Yeah. I
Well,
appreciate
oh
it.
yeah.
And
all for
actually,
one.
if it
Thanks,
is a
folks.
different program, think about other, what you're talking about, what other,
Yeah, if we're talking
Initiatives.
about two different grant funding sources, then we can talk about the projects that would best fit each of them and go from there.
yeah, so I mean, you could look into what would fit what you're talking about then, and, we can actually maybe get two.
Yeah. I can tell you that if you hear anyone say that we have to pave roads over, that's actually a logical fallacy. The EPA is using flawed data, and I spoke to Dr. Beverly Wemple, who actually did the research that the EPA is leaning on, and they're misapplying it and not providing the appropriate criteria. So that's a whole different down the rabbit hole.
All right.
Definitely
All right,
yes.
thank you.
Thank you, Joel.
You got it, folks. Good luck. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, we'll go to Brent since he's here in public.
So my name is Brent Anderson and I'm on Silly Hill Road. Last time we were here was mid-November and we had a discussion. Wayne, I think you were out sick at the time and you missed it. But one of the follow-ups that we discussed was to look at some potential improvements to the hill because the ditches are quite a bit deeper than what had been stated, what we had agreed to in July last year. They're many places 3 feet or more. And at the time we agreed to 2 feet. Anyway, there was a proposal to come back with, or a plan for a proposal to come back and share with the residents on what might be done and what the cost might be. And there was no commitment on what actions would be taken. It was more, hey, we'll do some work and we'll come back to you. And so I would propose that we add that as an agenda item. I don't know if the next one would be appropriate, or maybe 2 meetings out, but that way we can get the word out to the residents. And whatever you're willing to share at that time. I know Eric has been doing some work. I've interacted with him at some point, but I think one thing to recognize, again, maybe for you, Eric, is I'm a facilitator, I'm a focal point, but there's a lot of people, and having that discussion, I think, is probably appropriate versus trying for me to represent a large group of people.
Sure.
I'm very concerned that, my personal views might be different than theirs. And yet, I think it's helpful to have a focal point, but I don't think we should rely on that as the only avenue. So anyway, that would be my proposal this way at a agenda item. Go from there.
Well, thank you.
So my comment on that is, I have worked with Tyler. I have a proposal that I was hopeful would, kind of what I took out of that meeting that you're talking about is, in the end, there was a comment. What I took was, is there some middle ground we can be, right? We've got the engineer saying this completely meets all the specs. We've got the state saying it meets all the specs. We have the state inspector come and say, it looks great, wish they all look like this. And then we have the residents who don't feel safe, right?
Some of the residents.
Some of the residents who
Some of
don't
the
feel safe, certainly the people that were here.
Right.
And so was there some middle ground? So that's the approach I went out. Got Tyler up there. We have a very loose write-up of a proposal. I was hesitant to bring it to the board until I had a level of comfort that that we had some agreement that what we're proposing would make them feel better about it. I feel you've been pretty clear that it doesn't go far enough. So to me, that kind of gave me my answer right there, is that
I don't want to, I have not gone, and part of it is I don't have certain information like the cost information, some of the others. So I've not had a large meeting and gotten a lot of input. So I that was one of the things, is I don't want to portray my personal views or what I'm sharing as representing the broader community. I think there's too many people, and that's a little bit hard, particularly when I don't have enough of the information. So and I felt bad that I'm communicating with you and maybe gave you the wrong impression that this is what the broader group of people are looking for or expecting. I was giving you kind of my viewpoint from an engineering perspective. And I don't know if but we've had additional accidents in the section. We had the garbage truck slide into the ditch, took almost 5 hours to extract it. A lot of people are terrified. So for many people, they may view what's being proposed as, well, that's significant enough. And so, I think hearing directly from them is better than trying to come through me. I just don't feel comfortable.
Yeah, that's a
properly
lot.
representing.
That's a lot for you to bear, to try to have diverse opinions, but it sounds like we need to have that meeting. I'm prepared to not have everybody be satisfied with what the decision of the select board is, no matter what that is.
Yeah.
My sense is, given the history already, no matter what we propose, somebody, more than one person, is not going to be happy with it.
Correct.
And so I'm prepared to have a meeting and just say, this is what we're going to do, and it's over. That's where I'm coming from.
But-
So if you want to do that in an upcoming agenda, that's okay with me.
Now, did you, were you, as I recall, you taking it out to bid to get some numbers? Or
we have bids. Yep.
Yeah.
We have bids for what we're proposing. Again, I already know that it doesn't go far enough for Brent, so I was really hopeful that Brent and I could get to an agreement, and then
Right.
Brent could go and be like, guys, I think this is going to really help us.
Mhm.
And I don't even think we're there. So to me, I haven't proposed bringing it back to the agenda. We certainly could. We could put it on the agenda.
And then.
I don't see it.
Yeah,
I don't see it ending in. I don't know. I don't see a lot of good coming out of putting it on the agenda.
Now, is it worthwhile? I mean, you shared the proposal with Brent. I mean, the cost doesn't have to be part of it, but.
I wasn't sure what to do about the cost.
Yeah.
I want them to look at it like,
Yeah, right, because
You know,
that. they can
I
look
mean, I
at-
suppose they're gonna pay for it too, in their own way,
Right,
but,
and they're-
Well, it helps to understand, right? If it's X
If it
amount of
can be
dollars,
public,
people are going, well,
can I just say
it's
it?
like
or is there any
replacing
reason
the
I-
bridge. Well,
You
that would be
only,
phenomenal.
you only
Right.
have one bid.
Christ,
I have two.
You have two.
We have two of them.
Cost benefit.
Well,
we gotta make it fit.
Then theoretically, that should, there's two, then you have to,
They're very close.
there you go.
And I did offer to pay for the engineering if it would help at least clarify things, because I think part of this is, again, the data we've gotten from Tyler. And I don't want to, you have a lot of agenda here, but we have talked with the state. I've actually talked to the head of the highway department about this in general, not Jericho, but in general. And they're working to try to avoid this scenario down the road by updating their specifications, particularly for safety. And we have, I think it would be helpful to at least for people to hear it, and they could then provide some feedback.
So I was just wondering if it's worthwhile to provide them with what you have in terms of proposal.
I do. I have shared it with Brent. I don't have.
I have
he-
not sent it out because,
He doesn't
again,
have-
I
He doesn't have the dollar figure. but-
Well, I don't think the dollar figures that
Yeah,
necessarily.
he has the proposal.
So then they could have a meeting and look at that themselves.
That's what I was hoping for.
And so that
I,
they could
if
come.
that's a follow-up, I could
Because
do.
that would be useful rather than have everybody talk about it all at once, different.
Because I
things.
don't like, like I said,
mean,
I don't know
They
that
still
I,
would talk about it.
yeah, I don't know that I have support from my
Understood,
peers to
understood.
vote for it.
And
So,
I haven't shared it with the broader, because again, as as a focal point, I don't try to push too
Yeah.
much out.
I think in some ways it would be worthwhile if everybody looked at it and thought about it and talked about it.
Okay.
Rather than come here and then doing it here. I mean, at least.
That
have
would be
some-
better, yeah.
Yeah, have some.
That's true, because there's been other instances like that. A neighborhood will come and they're kind of working it out among themselves.
Yeah,
that's what I fear.
meanwhile,
It's gonna get
it's-
debated. Well, what if we did, what if here we went this? And you know,
Yeah.
we already did a lot of work. We spent money on Tyler going up there,
Sure.
it's not
Right.
cheap and. So
So I'd be glad to share that. I just didn't want to do something until, you gave me that kind of direction, right? I tend to be very cautious with over communicating and causing more issues.
Cool.
I can do that.
sounds good.
that sounds good. And then when people have had their meeting and they're going, then let us know and then we can put it on the agenda.
So
That sounds good.
can you paper or pencil it in maybe for 2 meetings out? I'll try to get that out to them. I'll try to provide
Yep.
some feedback.
Yes, meetings out.
Yeah, let me just get to a calendar here.
Right before town meeting? Oh, no, that would be the first meeting after town.
It would
meeting.
be the first meeting after town meeting.
Yeah, be the.
Oh, yeah.
Because this is the second, no, what do we?
Oh, wait, this is our second?
No,
February 2nd.
Yeah, February
Oh, right.
2nd, 14th is February 16th. That's,
You're right.
that's the
It's-
second meeting. And then the next one is town meeting.
Yeah, first Thursday in March is also the second.
Is also what?
Yeah,
Also
so there'll be
second.
one before,
Town
town meeting.
meeting day is on the seventh, so there's one before. town
Okay,
meeting
yeah.
day this year.
Up to you guys. It just
Yeah. So, yeah,
If
let's just
it's-
pencil it in March then.
plan before spring, and then it's easier to get people to do the work.
Right. That's true.
Because even though that's exciting, we got two bids.
Yeah, 2 of the 3 we had, based on the guesstimate that where we were at, we felt we needed 3 bids.
Right,
We reached out to 3 people. We got 2 very, very similar numbers back. We did not hear from the third. We felt that was enough for whatever due diligence we needed to do.
and clearly there's no work to be done this time of year anyway.
Sounds good.
That's okay.
One minor item, FYI, in the middle of the section, we did get a new stone wall built. And it makes the road much more dangerous. So I'm not sure why people are building stone walls in the road, but they did. That
Wow.
removed the turnaround area, that removed the pull-off area. It's the most dangerous part of the road. And we now have a new.
Within the
stone wall.
right of way, you're saying?
Oh, absolutely. Right on, basically where the mailboxes are, there's now a stone wall right next to it.
Oh,
And
that's
so
not cool. Because
we have a deep ditch on one side and a stone wall on the other.
Yeah, that.
Just to be aware of it.
Well, we should be aware of that because we've had people in other parts of town that like to put boulders in the right of way. And we've had to have them moved because of that.
It's not, it's like 30 feet or some 20, it's some number of feet. It's not, hundreds of feet,
But still,
but
that's
it's
feet.
right in the most dangerous spot. I actually almost got ran off the road by a tow truck because he's looking at the stone wall and he's keeping distance. I'm coming the other way. I had 6 feet on the other side. And so it'd be good to at least consider dealing with that also.
Yeah, thank you.
All right,
Thank you.
What house number is that? Do you know?
it's Brendan. It's right halfway up. He's got the backhoes and so forth.
Somebody who likes to play with their toys.
He's got the equipment and I think he was looking at what he wanted, but
Yep,
that's actually where we were kind of pulling off, and it was kind of a turnaround area. People were coming down the hill, you know?
Yeah.
It would be better if it was back where it was.
right, I mean, absolutely, because we don't like to have stone walls in town right of ways. We don't like boulders in town right of ways.
All right, thank
thank
very
you.
much. And again, Eric, I appreciate all the work you've done. I just felt a little uncomfortable that I was giving you, my view, and, there's a lot of people there, so thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks, Brett.
thank you. Are there any other people who wish to speak to public to be heard, on items that is not on the agenda? I don't see any hands. Okay. So I guess we can move on then to the Jericho Town Forest Dam and Karina Daly.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
We
Oh,
can,
yes.
welcome Karina.
Great. I'm sorry I'm not there in person,
No
juggling too many things tonight. So my apologies for that, but thank you for taking the time. And I guess I'm here with multiple hats, but and Tom is here as well. I'm on the Jericho Conservation Commission, and the Jericho Town Forest Dam is a project of the Jericho Conservation Commission, or we are interested in it, and the commission has been a part of the process. Sabina couldn't be here tonight, but she was also going to join. But we are coming to you to ask your permission to move forward with a feasibility study and concept design for removal of that dam. And I am happy to go into, sort of I sent some information to John Abbott in advance of this meeting, but I have, I can provide some of the science on why we're doing this and the benefits from a water perspective, and happy to answer any questions. I have met also with the Jericho Village Water District, who used to own the parcel, I believe, before they gave it to the town of Jericho. And met with them. Sabina and I both did. We, they very clearly said they don't own it anymore, but they gave us their full support of the project, and provided just some interesting history on it, because it's definitely been abandoned for a bit, but it did provide water supply to the neighborhood there at one point in time. So I guess with that, I'll open it up for questions and happy to go into more details as needed.
What would a feasibility study look like? Could you walk us through what is that? Is that a large thing? Is it a small thing, or like, could you elaborate on that?
Yeah, so to be clear, I'm not asking for money from the town. I think we could come up with private funds or state or federal funds for this work. There is, a fair amount of money through the ARPA bill and National Fish Passage Program, so a series of funds. But at this point, what a feasibility study could look like, and dam removals are typically, 3-part projects, and the feasibility study is the first part, and that's just like identifying what is going to be the cost of this removal? How big a project are we talking about? It would include sampling the sediment behind the dam. There is some concerns that there's some old transformers that are buried in there. So we would definitely want to sample the sediment to identify what best to do with it. It would also calculate how much sediment is behind the dam. So how much sediment has accumulated over time, and give us a better sense of what we're moving, because it's basically, when you dam a river, you basically impound sediment for over time, and that can build up. That sediment is needed downstream in a controlled way. So like it builds stream banks, and transports nutrients and material for habitat. So the reach of stream below the dam is actually sediment starved. It it hasn't seen sediment for a long time, nor has it received the nutrients from the transport of water downstream. So that's a benefit. The feasibility study also sort of gives the community an understanding of what the project would entail as far as construction access, time periods, scheduling, permits required, that kind of stuff.
Cool.
It's very cool.
Yeah.
Karina, when you, so when the sediments are finally released, do you do that in some kind of staged fashion? Or does it, how does that work? I've always been kind of unclear about that part of the dam removal process.
Yeah, and it's really site specific. So depends on the project. Most, I would say, at this point in time, just the way the permitting is and the cost of these projects, the most efficient way is to remove the sediment behind the dam, over one construction season. That's 4 to 8 weeks, depending on the size of the project. And that sediment would be transported off the site versus released downstream. Future sediment would go downstream, but we can't just let a massive flush of sediment go downstream. That's particularly true if there are, other heavy metals in the sediment that we don't want to transport. Phosphorus certainly can be one of them. I'm not sure that we would have a high content of phosphorus behind this dam, but it's, it depends. There is quite a big development upstream of it, so potentially. So then finding a place to store that sediment within the town is ideal, and often depending on the sediment, and we would know what the status of that sediment was, it can be used for fill material for the town. People like it for road, depending on the substrate, and we're high up in the watershed here, so I'm guessing we're dealing with quite a bit of fine substrate versus coarser material that would be nice for road base. But this could be, we've put it on farmers' fields in areas that they couldn't necessarily farm before, like little divots or rocky areas, and put it over that, and then they can seed it. So that's been another use of it. So yeah, different things.
That is predicated on the assumption that there aren't heavy metals in those materials, which would preclude them being spread around.
Totally.
The thing that really sticks out for me, because the dam is pretty modest. I've been down there a couple times in the 35 years I've been here, and it's cleaner. The Trails Committee has done a bunch of work, which is wonderful. But I'm really concerned about the possibility that there's some transformer buried in there, and the liability of the town. We pull a couple transformers out of the muck, and now we're liable to not only control the muck, but we've got to dispose of these. All of a sudden it feels like Fort Edward or something, over in New York, where they had all that crap in the river from GE. What's our potential liability if there's something like that behind the dam?
I think it's a good question. I guess I would counter with what's the liability of leaving it in the groundwater as well, because that's where it is right now. And there are 2 spring seeps that discharge right there, and if those transformers are leaching, that's not a good thing as it is right now. That's what this feasibility study would do, is we would sample those metals and identify that, and be able, and if it's a concern, then we would have to deal with the hazardous waste disposal folks at Vermont Agency of Natural Resources, who I'm very familiar with dealing with. We had a site in Rutland that was urban soils, contaminated soils for dam removal. And those soils, the way that site worked is we had to store those soils within the city limits of Rutland. And because they're urban soils within the city of Rutland, they were okay to be used in other places within that urban soils layer. Those soils, they didn't have any transformers in them, so I don't know how that would be different. But I guess the the alternative would be shipping them to Coventry, which I think is the next option. Or figuring out how best to deal with them. But I think that that's a good thing, is we should probably deal with them.
Right.
Sure.
Well, I'm glad you answered the question, because, obviously we just had a discussion about roads. And of course, gravel roads are, need to be dealt with because of phosphorus. So it's good to know how you're going to, because I was wondering about what happened if we had phosphorus buildup back behind the dam and,
Yeah,
So
no-
it sounds like the first step is this feasibility study, that this will identify if there's heavy metals or what heavy metals are in there.
and how
And
much.
then after that, and part and parcel of that study will be, and here's an estimate of how much it might cost to mitigate all that stuff.
Exactly.
So in a way, this isn't permission to remove the dam. This is permission to study what's behind the dam.
So it
Correct.
And then remove it at some point when we're able to.
Right. So it's study what's behind the dam and what would be involved in removing it, and is that the best option? So in part of that is like an alternatives analysis of, is it better to leave everything where it is? Like do the benefits outweigh the cost? So that would
Karina,
be.
would removal require use of machinery? Is it that much sediment?
Yeah, definitely. And
Yeah.
so I will say that I did talk to Steven Schwartz, I believe is his name.
Yes.
Via phone. We haven't met in person, but had a great conversation with him. He's been very involved with the Jericho Town Forest and the trail system. And he gives full support of the project. I think he was hoping to be here today, but couldn't be. But he said he would just like to be looped in to the whole process, and is definitely a stakeholder, and consideration as far as where the trails are now and accessing.
Where is this?
This is, excuse me just for a second.
Yeah,
Oh, that's the dam.
It's that little corrugated metal stuff like you see in Burlington where the
Yeah.
oil tanks were. And then the dam itself isn't, I mean, the pond itself isn't huge. I don't know how deep it is, but it's just this little metal.
Yeah, I got a better shot of it.
Karina, are you able to see the?
yeah,
the
no,
photo?
I'm looking at it too. And there
Great.
is like another impoundment a little bit above this one. So I think there was actually like 2 dams historically, and that's what the
Oh,
village.
really?
Yeah,
And this is kind of a skinny little road, probably just wide enough to get a pickup down. Oh, yeah, see?
Oh, my gosh, look at that. And it's just kind of stuck there, kind of, it's just like, look like. it's
and
kind
that sheet metal is above my head, so it's like 8 feet high. If you stand at the bottom of the dam, so the scale looks a little funny in this one.
It does look a little funny.
Yeah,
But
that's-
it's bigger than you'd think. Like it's yeah, it may not appear to be that big a dam, but it's pretty significant in the fact that it's just right at the head, these headwaters, these spring seeps, which is cold water that ultimately the Lee River and the Lamoille needs. So we really need to release that water and not impound it there if we're not using it for anything.
Karina, do you know what the intent of the dam was initially? Was it,
It was water supply.
I'm sorry, say again?
It was the water supply for the community right there.
It was. That's what
And it
Chris told
dried
me.
up. They
Oh.
couldn't get enough water from it as the community expanded.
My sense is that this predates the wellheads up in the town forest where the flat part is, where they actually drilled in from all the houses in Jericho Corners. This may be older than that. I don't know if that's what they told you at the village.
Yes, I
Yeah.
think that holds true. Yeah.
Sheet pile dams. Oh. okay.
Tom Barabo's in the chat. If you're not looking, he's saying he was under the impression the issue was PCB deposition, not the actual transformer units themselves.
Right, it's what's in the transformer, not the
Right.
casing of the transformer.
But you still gotta get rid of the transformer too.
Right.
Yeah. And so they were called sheet pile dams and. this-
Is there a local share for this study? How are we financing this study?
Yeah, who's financing the study, Karina? Is that your organization or?
So yeah, so my other hat is I am a restoration ecologist with Vermont Natural Resources Council. And I work on water policy as well. But I'm pretty good at finding funding for these projects, so that's another step. But this project, to be clear, that those applications would be, under the Jericho Conservation Commission as the applicant, and I would help support them in that role, providing my technical expertise. But we don't have funding at this point, but I think we can start applying for grants if we have the support of the landowner, in this case, the town of Jericho. So that would be
How
the
much
next step.
money do you think is needed for the feasibility study? Do you have any idea how much money this is gonna cost?
Yeah, they can range between like 10 and 20,000, depends
Oh.
on how much we want in the feasibility study. I don't know as far as the additional sampling efforts that will be required for the transmitters, how that will change the cost, but I would say like 20,000 probably on the $20,000 side of things.
Okay.
We'll
Tom,
give-
were you thinking that some of the Conservation Commission's money might go towards this, or were you assuming that this would not be part and parcel of any of the funds that are allocated to the Conservation Commission?
Well, I don't know if the grant monies that Karina is referring to might require a match from the town, but we hadn't talked about how to partition any funds for the next fiscal year because the town hadn't approved the budget yet.
Right.
Right.
And
That
yeah,
sounds like that sounds like there may be some conservation commissions, at least the possibility of some portion of the Conservation Commission's allocation might at least go towards some of this. That's not, I'm not saying a decision has been made,
No, no, no.
but you
no.
didn't say no, yes, or anything to that particular issue yet,
Well,
Tom.
There's a lot of responsibility the town bears since it's now town.
Yeah,
planner.
sure.
and I will just say that it's, all of these projects are better when we have the support, whether that's financial or just in-kind labor of the community. So if it's not, funds as match, even just in-kind time is appreciated. So the more people involved.
Machinery.
Oh,
The
that's
better.
right, machinery.
Yeah, I know Adam and the crew were involved in removal of the old pump house. Going back, that was 3
Yeah.
years ago now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
'cause some of those matches can be by in-kind efforts, that's true.
So do we need a motion to kind of approve are we approving you to start exploring the study, or are you just looking for the board supports this general direction? Because you don't really have like a proposal. You're gonna like start looking into grants, right? You're just kind of looking for approval to get started.
Yeah, and I'd be happy to draft a letter for you guys to sign if that's better, depending on your choice, but I think we're looking for approval to proceed with a feasibility study and concept design for the dam.
I think you can make a motion just based on what she said.
Okay. I will make a motion to approve a feasibility study for the removal of, what are we calling the dam?
Jericho Town Forest Dam?
The Jericho Town Forest Dam.
I completely support the project and all the critters in this town. I do. But I don't know what the local share is yet.
Right.
So to vote to go ahead with a study and I
Well,
don't know.
it's just to apply for a study.
Good. Oh, well, then sign me up. I second that motion.
All right, so let me rephrase it. So let me make sure I phrased it right. We should turn on the little whatever. You want to just start over?
Sure.
Sure.
Okay, so
That's
clear
it.
that motion, please.
Rewind.
So I will make a motion to approve the application for
A feasibility.
a feasibility study for removal of the dam in the Jericho Town Forest.
Now, does that work for you?
Yes, that does. That would be great. And that's what I can use for the funding requests. Just to be clear, so if then I receive said funds, do you want me to come back to share that information to proceed with the actual feasibility study?
Yes.
Yeah, I suspect there might be something that we have to specifically say,
Yes.
yes, this is the study we want. I think we will end up needing that.
Right, we will.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, John, do you,
I'll second.
you'll second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Yes, because once she gets a grant for a feasibility study, then we have to approve the grant.
Thanks, Karina. I'm in
Thank
full
you.
support of this project. I just, the local, first, the two things that just give me the heebie-jeebies a little bit is don't know what the local cost is, if there's any yet. And the whole thing, as Tom mentions about the PCBs, I just am holding my breath. I mean, one way or the other, we've got to do it, but I just am holding my breath until we find out what the status of that is. So thank you very much.
No, thank you guys for your time, and I appreciate your questions, and I
Oh.
think that's the best way to move forward.
I thank the Conservation Commission and its members for all the effort they're putting into this.
Yeah, thanks,
And
Tom.
thank you.
And once again, thanks to the Trails Committee too, because they've taken that whole area under their wing over the last few years, and that's really important too.
Yeah, Steve will be a great resource, Karina. He probably knows that area better than anyone I know.
Yeah, I'm excited to continue to connect with him.
Thank you.
Thank you
Yeah,
for your.
thanks,
Okay.
Karina.
Thank you. Yeah, PCBs give you, I mean, considering that they think of how much it's in every school now.
Yeah, or that stuff that GE put in the Hudson River, and it's, taking them 20 years to clean up.
Oh, yeah, that's right,
So,
forever. Next is select board updates. I do have one, the Jericho Energy, oh gosh, be nice if I could read my own writing, glasses help. The Jericho Energy Task Force presented a Better Way to Burn by Gail Stevenson of Burn Right, Vermont. And in spite of the weather, because that was last week, and it was, flurries and snowing, and the JCDC was meeting at the same time, which, had a whole lot of people there. I mean, but we actually had a really good turnout. And so the presentation was recorded, and we looked at data. In fact, it's real-time data. You can on air quality from the recording station that's in Underhill. And you can see changes depending on time of day and stuff. It's
oh,
nice.
really?
Of air, yeah, but still, Underhill is still one of the cleaner ones. Rutland's pretty dirty. But it really, it's a site that actually does real-time recording. It was well received. There were a lot of good questions. And the information from the Renewable Energy Resource Center was also provided. And I think I still have to give that to Sabina, the link, because there are rebates and financial help available for people who actually have wood heat systems. And you can get funding to help update or upgrade that. And particularly those who have older wood stoves, there's even more money available for them.
Right.
To, and they will even work on the chimneys and trim work and everything else to make it happen. So that you can go from these very old wood stoves to get an EPA certified one. And one of the fellows who was there, he said if his old stove was continued to work, he wouldn't have gotten a new one, but he said he really loves his new one. But his old one was pumping back into the house, moving back into the house.
Let's talk about pellet stoves at all.
There used to be a person who would come and talk about pellet stoves, and I found I was going to contact, and I did contact one of the chimney people who deal with that stuff. But because I only had one, it would not have been appropriate to just have one contractor there.
Oh, right.
So, but you're right. We hope it would be nice to actually have, some more information on pellet stoves. The woman who used to co-present with Gail Stevenson was no longer available. In fact, her job was no longer listed in where it used to be in one of the state A&R sections. So it had obviously moved. Maybe it's that new renewable energy resource center material. But anyway, that's what I got.
Great, I've got a few, I felt like I did a huge shared a lot of information with you all over the last couple of days. A lot of it requiring a significant amount of reading and absorption. So I acknowledge and B, apologize.
I didn't read it all.
I wanted you to know I didn't expect you to, but
I only got 10 today, I think.
no, number of things in a nutshell. I forwarded the end of year statistical summary that we were provided by Richmond Rescue. I definitely invite you to look at that by way of both data assessment, but also to look at that comparatively given relative and parallel information we received from Essex Rescue.
Yep.
That has been, from my standpoint, the gold standard. We've been pushing back and looking for that kind of granular type information, particularly in regard to service calls, saying nothing about budget, dispensation of funds or any of those sorts of things.
You know, Richmond Rescue used to have issues a long time ago that, you know, their prices were escalating and stuff, and they did have some financial issues. But with the new ED that came out, God, it's years ago now.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
you know, all of a sudden you started getting budgets, you could see what their, you know, their cost analysis was and all, you know, I mean, we've actually got actual budgets to look at and stuff like that. And then, you know, you were able to feel comfortable about the per capita costs.
Yeah. Oh, I also forwarded the feasibility analysis that was conducted by the Board of Chittenden County Communication Union District in coordination with CCRPC and the Rural Initiative for Strategic, forgetting the other I, but it's basically the
Initiative?
it's Matt Dunn's nonprofit that works out of the Springfield area in support of broadening broadband and fiber-based telecommunication around the country. And the feasibility analysis was really looking at the development of a business plan. So now that we have all these towns that have become members of the Chittenden County Communication Union District, we've tried to create a budget and are in the process of looking for an executive director and actually staffing the board so that we have active personnel working in conjunction with the state to put out contracts and make determinations about next steps in the communities that we serve.
Wow.
And where will the funding come for that staffing? I know it won't come from our budgets, but where is it going to come from?
So it'll come, I believe it's all coming from the state. The state has ARPA funds for distribution for these purposes and support of communication union districts. Catherine, I don't know from your vantage as CCRPC board chair, what if anything else you know?
I do know that the group has applied for its $300,000 from the broadband board.
Correct.
That was talked about last night.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
that is a
what I'm talking
process.
about.
That is a
Yeah.
process.
So they have so the idea is that it'll be the district as an entity will be based out of Chittenden County Regional Planning.
Right. That
And
makes sense.
Yeah, and
become the hub of decision making.
the key is they do not intend to do it long term. It's just the transition period. The RPC will provide staffing
Right.
and expertise to move it forward, but long term, they will not be the ones running it.
Yeah, no, there had been discussion about identifying local board representatives from the communities. To date, it continues to be, as far as I can tell, town administrator, town manager folks. So I'm not sure what, if at any point that's going to tip. I've had some cursory discussions with folks that I think would be good candidate representatives from Jericho. But there hasn't been, there hasn't been a lot of discussion or push around that at this point. Still relatively early on.
Yeah, I think this seems, it's the administrative phase where you really do need your town administrators or managers, because it's getting all that
Yeah,
stuff. But when it starts going to the technical details, that's when you're gonna need somebody who knows something.
Yeah.
Right now, it's the structural stuff.
Exactly,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, that's why the Hampton.
yeah, it's basically setting up shop.
Right.
It's its own little municipality for the next few years until we can get to go on installation. I think I also forwarded along the news about the response to the RFP for reappraisal. So
Mhm.
to date, we've received one bid from Nemrick. Given the concern regarding availability of entities that can do reappraisal work. I know Terry and Lori are relieved, to say the least.
Yeah, the fact that they even got a bid, I mean,
Yeah.
it's, I understand there's places that haven't got. bids.
How do we proceed on something where, how long is it appropriate to wait to see if there's another bidder before we say, you know, we've got to take action?
I don't know, I have to, I'm not,
I mean, it's a massive contract, and
It
yet
is.
if you only have one bidder, you
Well-
kind of want to, at some point, say, let's grab the only bidder that's going to be around and get in line, because
Right.
if it is the only bidder, then, and we wait too long, then we're number 250
Oh,
on
yeah,
the list,
when
you
you,
know.
when you looked at the number of towns that they are doing or have done. And are, are already on the list to do, I mean.
Yeah.
It's looking like you can't dawdle too long.
so I'm not sure, Wayne, to answer your question, I'm not sure what the deadline was for RFP proposals. I can check in with Lori and Terry. I don't think. My understanding is they're probably not expecting additional.
Right.
The good news is, given the bid as it was, and cost as projected. The reserve fund and the contributions that we've been making from. The budget over the last handful of years is. Putting the fund exactly where it needs to be able to cover the cost of the reappraisal. So we're in good shape there.
And it seemed like what they were asking the town for was stuff that we would normally cover anyway,
Yeah,
but then the lister's budget.
So you're gonna find out how long it's appropriate before we sign up, if this is all we
yeah,
have.
I'll connect with Lori in the morning and see if they're expecting additional proposals.
Or at least
And what
what
the
the
deadline
deadline was for the RFP.
Yeah,
I remember I looked at the RFP, it was a number of weeks ago. I don't remember the deadline for submission.
so Lori would say, will probably say with confidence, nobody else is coming.
Yeah.
That's right.
It's been 3 weeks, and so,
The cavalry's not coming.
and I know how she's gonna say it too. It's gonna be really black and white.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Good news, in highway department staffing arena, Adam offered a position to Fletcher Eddy. If you remember, Fletcher was a candidate going back to late fall. He lives kind of far away, decided in the end that the salary being offered at that point wasn't substantial to the point of making it worthwhile for him to pursue employment in municipality so far away. That has changed. So since we adjusted the salary scale to meet market demand for highway department workers entering, he is all in and excited.
How far away does he live?
So I think he's in Enosburg.
Oh, my God, I mean. It makes you worry about, somebody who has to come in at 4 a.m. and, Cause
Well, he knows
that's a difficult haul.
It is. He knows the drill and Adam's been through it and Adam seems confident that he is gonna meet the
Well,
demands
who
of the
knows, it
work.
might encourage him to move down here.
Yeah.
If you can't afford to.
Yeah. I was gonna say.
You know that.
Yeah, so he'll be
They have to build
starting,
those houses first.
he'll be starting on Monday, or no, I'm sorry, February 20th, so he's got a couple weeks before he.
We could encourage
be
someone
on
to
the
make a
job.
accessory dwelling.
That's right.
You know,
Yeah, I mean. yeah.
That's what the next town garage needs to have.
A six- a-
Housing, right part of it. Roll out of bed and get into the.
Workforce housing,
Yeah,
like the fire station,
Yeah.
slide down the pole, have the cook upstairs.
I mean, well, there are some places that are doing that, you know, some organizations, because.
I applied for principalship in central Vermont many years ago. And they dangled out the thing that they would find a house for me and I could live in that house with my family. And they were so intent on getting somebody who would stay in the town that they were gonna figure out, you can live there while you're working here and we'll pay for it. I was like, what? I've never
Wow.
heard of that deal. It's incredible.
That is.
Yeah, I mean, it's
the
unfortunate.
UVM Medical Center we just got an email that their first, people can start applying for the housing that they've done. So we just gotta, like, there's certain requirements, I think, of how to qualify, but.
The medical center built housing, where?
Downtown South Burlington, they were gonna,
I
that
don't
new
know
road,
exactly where it is.
that, you know, the new road where the
Oh,
town
beyond-
library
beyond
is.
Healthy living and all that.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
and you know, those 5-story apartment buildings, I think the hospital just said. It was either the hospital or UVM was gonna build one of these 4 or 5-story apartment buildings.
Yeah.
Strictly for, I think it was the
Workforce
hospital.
housing. Yeah, no, that's, I mean. They're trying to control costs, and one reason you can't get people is they can't, you know,
Yeah,
we have to hire traveling nurses, which costs 3 times as much.
Oh, yeah.
And because we don't have the staff here, part of the reason we don't have the staff here is because we don't have the housing here, and you know,
Yeah.
so.
And of course, you're spending so much on the traveling nurses, but you don't have money to raise the nurses' salary that you do.
I know, yeah, it's a tough.
I mean, it really is a deadly spiral for everything.
Trying to think a couple other things quickly. There's a zoning administrator 101 training that Linda is attending tomorrow. Mostly from the standpoint of wanting to better understand that roles and responsibilities and engagement as it relates to being a town planner. The other,
that's great.
yeah, then the other late in the day item I forwarded was the survey results from the Equitable Inclusive Communities Survey. I think a number of you had participated. Participation in the end on the part of the town of Jericho relative to others in the cohort was pretty darn good. We did an analysis with the director of Abundant Sun a couple weeks ago. And I think it's the information is interesting. And I don't know that I have any specific takeaways, but because some of the climate oriented questions you know, indicate things around work culture and work environment, I don't know that those pieces specifically would be made public.
And there were
But
some interesting
they
answers
might
there.
They might inform some of our thinking around you know, future training, kind of, again, workforce development as we yeah.
Yeah, in
think about-
general, the numbers look pretty good in terms of the answers, but you know.
Yeah, I mean, you know, from my vantage in my role, I felt largely, we talked in general terms about sort of cross cohort patterns. That were evident through the process of looking at the surveys from an integrated standpoint. And then we were also provided data specific to our town. So you've got, you know, measurable data set to hold what our survey results are telling us. So I would look forward to having some future discussion, and I shared those results with the Diversity, Equity and Inclusion Committee.
Oh, good.
So we'll see.
The general, this, or the Jericho? Both.
Yeah, both. And I asked that, again, that they be held confidential.
Sample size is very small. The results were very, I thought they were very positive
Yeah.
Yeah,
for
there was just a
Jericho.
couple tweaks that went, wonder what that's about.
If you look in some of the comments, buried in some of the
Exactly.
comments, then you find things, okay, maybe we should think about that, but that's one person's opinion.
Right.
You're talking
But-
about the email that John sent at 4?
Yeah.
Yes,
You guys had time to read that? So I'm just seeing it now. I'm like, how do you have all this information?
They used to call him last minute Hal back in the day.
There's something about retirement.
I get I thought I missed something.
Well, I
Oh my
mean, that's
gosh.
what that's what the survey also showed, how many people are that volunteered that are over.
over 60.
Yeah,
It's all old people.
because that's who has the time. Young people have families that, and all those kids have soccer playing.
Yeah.
You know,
Nobody,
and
nobody that
Taekwondo.
isn't retired.
I will
would
remind
be
you-
in their right mind to volunteer
We
for any
do
of this stuff.
have 2 high schoolers who will be present in perpetuity on the DEI committee, which I think is a great.
I think
It
that's
won't be,
fabulous,
it won't be
because
necessarily them, but we will always
Right,
have the
exactly,
two,
we'll
yeah.
have 2
I think
teams.
really, I mean, and that's a really good, voice to have.
Yeah, Wendy Baron back gets all the credit for that. That was her idea, and I think we're all thought she was a genius.
Yeah.
That's it, by way of my updates.
I have a couple of just real brief updates. One is I sent out a notion about ARPA, just trying to put together a summary of
Oh, yeah.
the information as I understood it. And then I know I neglected a couple suggestions. So just for the audience, small as it may be, I tried to put together my understanding of the timeline. It was a very gross timeline. And then as importantly, perhaps, were all the suggestions to date that we've received. I need to add a comprehensive rebuild of the library, including ADA, improving ADA accessibility at Town Hall. I don't know why this has taken so long to get that door done. I guess we're moving on it. And then there was an individual citizen who had contacted the select board in regard to ARPA funds, perhaps helping to provide grants for private water system improvements. I just thought that would at least should be on the record since we did receive that.
Yeah. What's interesting.
So, I'm not suggesting we make a decision on it, but if there's anybody else has a different sense of this timeline, because I just needed something concrete to grab onto, as well as the short list of the suggestions. I'd be happy to hear it, just so it's clear in my mind.
Yeah, this is good.
Yeah, because some of those were the big ass early on, and then there was, some smaller ones that came in, but particularly from the library, was, even if you did, just if you look at the survey, there was, at least wanting to do something ADA accessible to the library.
Right.
So I mean, that whole thing was broken down into segments.
So as we get closer to making decisions about this, I suspect that we'll need to make sure this list is complete. And then we'll probably need to adopt some criteria. JPC had put out what their criteria was in coming up with the recommendations to us, just in pursuit of actually getting to a point where we decide this rather than that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, because I know folks that are on the Underhill just, it's not that the committee hasn't been around that long, and they have the deadline. They took some proposals, and Cambridge, I think, and West also had things like that. But the interesting idea is, our group has come up with much more, I would call big projects, transformative use there, but the other ones have been, oh, well, we could do this, or this building needs that, and stuff that you kind of put off, but know you should do, but so they're using it for those purposes. So I think it's kind of cool that our community is thought big in terms
Yeah.
about wanting to do stuff.
Yeah, they already did one cool project. They did don't know if you saw the renovation they did around the town pond. In Underhill Center, they
Yeah.
put.
What is it? Because I was there a couple weeks
I
ago.
think, you know, I haven't talked to Brad about it specifically. I think they made the pond slightly smaller and kind of grew the sort of beach and the land area between the pond and the tennis courts. They put up a new fence. They did some hydro seeding and some landscaping work, and that was rather late fall.
That pond could be a little smaller than it was when my son took swimming lessons in it. Now that you're thinking, wow, this is quite a little modest place.
Yeah, it was interesting. The committee came in after some of that. The select board actually had done that kind of.
Oh, is that right?
I understand because the committee was only formed like last fall.
Oh, okay.
Right. And their meetings are on cable. So once in a while you could,
Yeah.
See them at
and,
work.
You get, some people who, have a lot of experience like Bill Frank. So.
Yeah, to put it on your radar, and I know this is, Wayne indicated on your support for local emergency services. I received a call from, Andy Forsberg at the Underhill Jericho Fire Department. Asking to be put on the agenda for next meeting. They have, Matt had brought it up during his budget review, the need for electric power tool, or excuse me, battery driven power tools to replace their set of electric power tools they use for venting houses and cutting holes in roofs when they're fighting fire. Stuff they have currently, they got to find an outlet to plug it in, and depending how far along the fire is, it's either time consuming or impossible. And the idea again would be that it would be a shared expense with the town of Underhill, and it could be either done proportionally or 50-50, depending on the cost.
that's crazy. Place is on fire and they're running around looking for an outlet.
Yeah.
I know.
I mean, that's just,
Well, at least you're not actually asking for the Ford F-150.
I mean, that's really a challenge.
The electric one to plug things in.
There is the energy task force will be forever in their good graces when they switch over to power or
That's
battery
right.
powered tools.
The other thing I discovered in an email was I was madly trying to catch up was this email from Taylor Newton, I think she's CCRPC,
Yes, you.
about this enabling better places and some of the suggestion, it is. If I wasn't gonna spend $500 on ink cartridges, I would have printed the whole thing off, but they're gonna have. What they're proposing as far as dimensional requirements or suggesting, that's a better word.
Right.
Parking standards, allowable uses, street standards, accessory dwelling units is going to be so useful in this revision of the town plan. And I like so much of the direction of that. If you haven't had a chance, I assume all three of us got it.
Yeah.
That booklet, Enabling Better Places, I think it's a 100-page booklet, is just great, so encouraging and positive, makes
Yeah,
me
he-
feel like we could make a dent.
He's one of the top level planners. He's the one who replaced Virginia.
Oh,
He's a data guy too, if
Yeah.
I'm not
Yeah, he's really
remembering correctly.
quite interesting. Because I made the mistake yesterday saying Tyler, and he said, yeah, everybody does that every day. But I'm a tailor. But he talked last night about the housing workshop that just was recently had and stuff. I'll say some things later. But and different things that going on. But they also talked about people need to pay attention to what's going on in the legislature, because there's a whole slew of things. Not like, what is it, 142, H-142?
Oh, yeah, actually, I have
And all kinds of stuff are stuffed in there, and they're trying to figure out whether they, what's going to float during the whole session, because they said there's so much in that bill. And there's, whether how municipalities are going to feel about the state actually saying this will be your zoning laws, when it comes to density or something like that. Or, but they're, the state is working very hard to increase density, especially in areas that already have water and sewer.
Yeah.
Because, and going even to 5 units per acre rather than even 4. And so there's a lot to watch in the legislature when it comes now to housing and housing construction.
And there's something contrary about, so I was reflecting on some of this and I only had 5 minutes to look at it
Right.
today,
He's one of them too.
but this document and where I think the state wants to go isn't, oh my God, we've got another 500 pages of regulations to deal with. I think it's going in the other direction, which is creating more opportunities for people who want to build, who want to develop. And that's not to say we want Jericho to be built like crazy,
It
but
depends on where you read in the bill, because the whole thing depends on where.
right.
It's-
But-
It's aware, because the state is also trying to protect wildlife corridors, the old forests, things like that, because those are all carbon sinks and they need to meet the.
It's all about building in downtowns,
Yes, it is. In fact,
and that's good.
that's very good. In fact, it's the other part, not this bill, but another one that they're looking at is, again, revisiting maybe Act 250 and making it easier to build in downtowns without having to,
Hallelujah.
and infill and stuff without having to go through Act 250. Or making it so that people who came in under the latest iteration where it was easier to do the downtowns, that you apply that to people who already were doing that kind of work, so they're not stuck with their old Act 250.
Yeah. I think, I guess I'll say carefully, there are people of many different political stripes who I think will find something, at least some things in here that are exciting
Right,
going down the road.
I think so. I
And
think,
so what is that?
This is as part of an
VLCT.
email from the CCRPC from this guy Taylor.
Okay,
And one of the attachments is this new booklet from the state that says, here's how, here's some opportunities for developing things in a different way that will provide more opportunities for affordable housing and strengthening downtowns. And I mean, I'm sure I just made a chopped word salad of this whole thing because it's actually quite an elegant document,
it's a lot of work.
a lot of work. But yeah, it's definitely worth looking at. I know that the planning commission will be all over it. It's got really good stuff in it.
I
So
did
that,
want to, I think I forwarded you confirmation of H42 being passed, so. At the last select board meeting, we got an indication that it was soon to be put in front of the legislature and would be passed on to the governor. It was signed. So select boards are now free to vote to move town meeting day and or choose to use Australian ballot. So there doesn't need to be an article, there doesn't need to be a petition in advance of said article.
I think Jessica, as Jessica said, she's already sent in the digger that we were having it in person.
Yeah, well, for this year.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so does this mean the dissolution of town meeting day?
or is it just for
In
a
the
special
I
timeline?
mean, could we decide, we want to do it in May and Westford could say, oh, let's do it in August for whatever reason.
I guess.
I think there's a deadline to it. Again, that's like the emergency thing, and then it runs only till April of 2024 or something like that.
Oh,
Doesn't say anything about a deadline.
I mean, it's kind of a traditional,
Or that's one that
It
is,
says it also puts back in place emergency open meeting law provisions. Most notably, the ability to hold virtual only meetings
yeah,
and the ability to post meeting warnings electronically.
yeah, I think there's a date
I
on
think it's
that.
just an extension for
Yes,
another year.
yeah,
oh,
Through the
okay.
end of 2024.
I think so. I think,
I'll go, I didn't.
I think there
didn't
is
look
an
at the
end
bill
date
itself,
again
I
on
just
that.
Read the email.
His, I looked at the bill at one point, but but it seemed to me that there was an end date in there, but I could, that could have been removed from the last time I looked at it too, because all those last minute changes that happen when the sausage is made before it goes to the governor.
Yes.
There does seem to be an uptick in the number of people wearing masks.
Yeah.
In the last few weeks.
Yeah.
I've noticed you go to someplace big.
Yeah, and that was good. I mean, because, yeah, the funeral we had to go to. I mean, there's quite a few people in the match there. And,
That's it for my updates.
Yeah.
Yes, that's it for mine.
I don't have any.
So other business? You want me to do this, the
Sure.
record?
Yeah, I think that would be great.
Okay, because what, Wayne was talking about, our surveys talked about the planning commission, affordable housing committee. That affordable housing has been at the top of the list for both ARPA surveys as well as recommended by the Affordable Housing Committee and the Planning Commission. It has been suggested that ARPA funding to pursue property will help meet these goals. Based on VLCT's information, other towns are also spending their funds in this manner. Given the limited availability of land for sale in Jericho for this, the town is actively pursuing opportunities if they may arise. And I can even go on and talk about some examples that we tried in the past that didn't happen.
Yeah.
If you like.
Up to you, Madam Chair.
I mean, because I don't, because I was thinking about this and it went back and forth a lot. Is, for example, these are examples why the town may want to act quickly
Yeah.
on some of this stuff. Because I don't think a lot of people are aware that the select board has been interested in providing housing for a very long time. Because when the Riverside property first went up for sale, the select board actually did a purchase and sale agreement for that property at full price. So that we could able to work with and we were actively vetting developers who would be interested in building affordable workforce housing, which at that time, which is pre-COVID, was $200,000 to $300,000 homes. And then we also created the Jericho Community Development Corporation to follow through on this, work. But the town was turned down by the owner at that time. And then when the Rivers property was put up for sale, again, the select board created a committee, actually 2 committees, because we went through 2 iterations to try to work with the Rivers Committee of the fire department to work out a purchase arrangement. We would utilize the JCDC to do the heavy lifting of the development, but this also did not work out. And people say, well, that's a good thing it didn't, because then the UJFD offered to the town for free. Technically, however, there was some costs that would now have to be met. And this is a hiatus. It's just, So, I mean, it's important that the town be able to be flexible and move when we can. If we're going to actually, because some of the most important things that are the heavy duty costs of affordable housing is either your land or your infrastructure. And now it's also, the supply chain stuff to build it, but the biggies were the land and the infrastructure. Those are the 2 things ARPA funding can help us with.
So we continue to pursue opportunities to help create affordable housing in Jericho.
Yeah, exactly. But I don't think a lot of people knew what this, the select board has done over the years, that we really have tried.
In advance of the emergency, the now emergency.
Exactly. I mean, because there was a tremendous opportunity, because we had actually vetted several different developers who were interested in, providing these, reasonably priced homes, as well as then you'd have, the apartments over the retail and more expensive homes. So you'd have a mix just like a regular neighborhood. But didn't work out. And, and now we still have that issue there. Trying to make things happen. I mean, so somewhere along the line, the dam's got to break and you gotta be able to build some housing.
Apropos metaphor for tonight, given our opening ask around dam removal.
Exactly. So anyway, next on the, if anybody has any other business, we'll move on to the warrants. Which there is no, computer sign, we've already done it.
Yep.
And then we have the minutes of 1/12/23, the joint minutes of 1/19/23, and minutes of 1/26/23.
So on the minutes of January 12th, are there any corrections?
I'm good.
Motion to approve the minutes of 1/12/23.
I can second that.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, January 19th.
Oh, by the way, that January 12th meeting, listeners, was a joint meeting with Underhill Select Board.
Oh, that's right.
right.
That's a
Oh,
good
yeah.
idea.
Mhm.
The minutes of the select board of January 19th is a regular select board meeting. And I do have changes. Page, line 38. It says the Riverside Walk, we're talking about, capital budgeting. And I had said that there's nothing budgeted for sidewalks and sidewalks in FY 24. And it comes across because it says the Riverside Sidewalk project will be spent in FY 23. No, there's no money actually spent or very little spent to date. It was just that the project was booked in FY 23.
Correct. How do you wanna? what's your
Scheduled?
wording?
Let's just put was booked. Do you think that works? Because that's, because if you look at what Brian has done, he has the $600,000 there, so just eventually will be used as the project goes forward, because as John has reported, I signed the contract at the RPC.
Mhm.
And that Cy has started as project manager to begin the foundational work on that. And then it's line 190. Oh. 199. What's the matter here? Where you're talking about the reserve funds, and it says funds will depend on the tax rate. No, the funds that will go into the reserves depends on the grand list as they are calculated based on the tax, as the values are calculated based on the tax rate.
Got it.
Because the tax rate is fixed on both of those. But the number changes because the grand list changes.
Right.
And then,
That's an important distinction.
exactly.
Language again, Catherine. Grand list is calculated.
Yeah, the funds will depend on the grand list as the values are calculated based on the tax rate. 270. I made a mistake. The movie is not called Kiss the Dirt, it's called Kiss the Ground.
I'm sorry, what was the line number?
270.
270. And then, most importantly,
It's on Netflix.
yeah, I saw that.
I watched it like a year ago.
Did you really?
Yeah, it
What'd
was
you
really
think?
good. It was good. Regenerative agriculture and yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna have soil scientists come and talk as well about the movie. But had some big name stars talk about,
I think Matthew McConaughey might be in it, or
yeah, there's some
Woody Harrelson.
Woody Harrelson, yeah, he's there. So anyway, the last one starts at 332 and goes to how many lines it needs to be. Is that under adjourn, it says Eric motion to come out of executive session. Wayne seconded at 12 p.m. January 26, 23. The motion passed 3-0. No action taken. Wayne motion to adjourn, Eric seconded, the motion passed 3-0. Meeting of January 2023, of January 19th, 23 was adjourned. Because
That's it, Madam Chair.
on that one,
So I make a motion, we approve the minutes as amended of January 19th, 2023.
I second that.
all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And the last one is pretty straightforward. It's the meeting of January 26th. So I have, nothing on that one.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as presented for the meeting of January 26, 2023.
Second,
Second, all those in favor say aye.
aye.
I'll make a motion to go into an executive session to talk about personnel and legal because premature disclosure of the information would be detrimental to the parties.
Second,
All those in favor say aye.
aye.
Okay, we went in the ES.
Thanks, Aaron.
Thanks, Aaron.
Thanks, Aaron. Good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, SJ. Did she drop? Yeah.
She dropped a while ago.
Good night.